welcome on stage. And yeah, you're ready to inspire them.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. So, building and gilding the candidate experience at Zalando. So what I'm going to tell you is a little story about the last year at Zalando. Like what's already been mentioned, my old boss, Paul Maxon, was presenting here last year, and he was the one who actually put me in the position of candidate experience. We were going through lots and lots of change, hiring crazy amounts of people, which I'll talk about later on. And we needed to take care of the candidate experience because of the way that we were hiring. As I was putting together this presentation, I was actually listening to one of my old Beatles records, and this song came on, The Long and Winding Road. And I don't know whether it's just that I'm too close to the subject of candidate experience now, but when I listen to songs, it seems that it turns into some kind of metaphor for a bad candidate experience. And the long and winding road is how I see most candidate experiences. We actually, when we build processes, recruitment processes for candidates, we don't make them customer-centric necessarily at first. We tend to build processes for HR people first. And this is something that I want to explain a little bit more. Because candidates are our customers, and we need to see them as that. My name's Chris Raw. I'm the Candidate Experience and Talent Innovation Lead at Zalando, and I'm going to explain a little bit more about my story briefly. So I fell into recruitment, as most people do. I actually, in a former life, I used to milk cows for a living as a farmer. And so I don't know how I ended up in recruitment. I remember being at a conference once, actually. I think it was Talent Connect, the LinkedIn conference that's and Booking.com were presenting there. And one of their recruitment slogans is, I think, there's always cows to be milked. And I totally resonated with that because my dad used to tell me that every day. So, who knows Zalando in the audience? I'm assuming a lot of people, because the Netherlands is one of our top performing countries. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about Zalando at a glance and some of the numbers that we produce. So our revenue for last year was 4.5 billion. We get 200 million visits per month. 75% of those visits are on mobile devices, so we're a very mobile-first company. We now have 24 million active customers across 17 countries in Europe. Recently, this year, we added the Czech Republic and Ireland to our country list. The one in the bottom left-hand corner is the most interesting, I think, from a HR point of view, 15,000 employees in Europe. Now, you've got to cast your mind back to when Zalando first started. So it started in 2008. Robert Gens and David Schneider, our founders, started the company running customer service off their mobile phone, selling flip-flops from a flat in Torstrasse in Berlin. Fast forward 10 years, it's 15,000 people. When I joined the business nearly 4 years ago, I think we're about 8,000. So we've been hiring 2,500 to 3,000 people per year. It's pretty relentless, and it's hyper-growth to the next level. And this is how it is spread across Europe. So you can see the main headquarters and outlet is based in Berlin, but we also have many sites across Germany, mainly our fulfillment centers, but also a tech hub in Dortmund. We've now started to add outlets so we've been an e-commerce company originally, but now we're starting to add more outlets, so more physical stores, retail spaces to our portfolio. Along with that, we've opened up tech hubs in Dublin and Helsinki and more fulfillment centers across the way. We've also now added an ad tech lab as part of Zalando Marketing Services, which is based in Hamburg and Berlin as well. So we are sort of across Europe predominantly, but we hire predominantly from around the world, and Germany as well. So we have to be quite open to talent, but also we have to take into consideration the different experiences of internationals as well as nationals as well when we're creating processes for the recruitment process. So these are impressive numbers, but what does it actually mean for Zalando candidates? So here you can see the classic recruitment funnel. And what's interesting about the recruitment funnel is that we're always focused on the end goal. And the end goal is to make the hire. So you can see those people at the bottom, yay, we got hired, and they're quite happy. But the reality is, what about us? What about the other people? When we focus on the end goal, which is the hire, we forget about everyone else. Think about how we reject candidates at the moment. It's usually done at scale through an autoresponder, and maybe it might be a phone call with different parts of feedback along with that. But this causes us to think about how we treat candidates, all candidates. Zalando's purpose is reimagine fashion for the good of all. But how do we reimagine the candidate experience for the good of all? At Zalando, we get 120,000 applications per year, and there's only 3,000 hires per year maximum. So there's 117,000 candidates that could be recycled into other positions. One of the big changes that we made in the last year was investing in CRM and creating a silver medalist strategy so we remarket opportunities that fit the grade to those candidates. So, as you can see, there's a picture of a band called Journey there. There's a music theme with this presentation. They actually wrote a song called Don't Stop Believing, so again, going back to candidate experience is a good bit of advice for interviews. But I wanted to just focus a little bit on defining the candidate journey. So I found this quote on the Smart Recruiters website. There's lots and lots of quotes out there about candidate experience, but I think this sort of nailed it for me. The candidate experience starts with a job candidate's very first exposure to a potential employer. It encompasses the entire journey from first touch to final point of rejection or job offer and hire. Before we go into the journey, as Zalando, what we wanted to do is create some values, some sort of statements around how we want to treat candidates and what we feel is the best value for candidate experience. At the bottom, you can see 4 values. Those are seamless experience, clarity, assessment quality, and interaction quality. And these are what we measure on the candidate experience. These are what we call our core values. The rest of the values are made up from research from KPMG Nunwood. I would highly recommend that you check out that site because a lot of the research we did was actually on customer experience, not resurfacing old articles about the candidate experience. But we wanted to make sure that we did a lot of work and research around the customer experience, so we added those in, and that's around personability. So how do we make things personal for the candidate to the power of one? Setting great expectations is key to the candidate experience as well. Having integrity, delivering what we say we're going to do. Having empathy, so understanding the candidate's point of view. And also resolution. I think this is one of the values that I see in recruitment we forget sometimes, is how do we resolve an experience from going the bad way? How do we make sure we focus on making sure that those sort of crossroad decisions turn into a good experience? So we work a lot with the recruitment team at Zalando to make sure that they are baking these values into their recruitment process. We also created a set of principles that help us guide us in projects. So at Zalando, myself and another colleague run a number of different projects relating to the candidate experience and the recruitment process. And we wanted to create some principles that help guide our decisions with that. So the first one is we create the first memories of every new Zalando. So this is important for external hires because actually a lot of our hires for certain job families come from outside of Germany. So sometimes, especially if you're hiring from the States, they might not know who Zalando are. Until very recently, many of our Irish colleagues who joined Zalando might not have known who Zalando were because we didn't actually sell in their country. It was only till this year where we actually finally did that. So it's important to give a great experience because you're creating those first memories. And ultimately, hopefully, they will become a customer of our brand as well. Principle 2 is about a rejected candidate is a future candidate. This looks at how we should treat candidates as customers, but not just in a transactional sense, but a lifetime relationship approach. So we actually believe that this bracket called silver medalists are actually a crowd that not only do we know a lot about, because we've already interviewed them before, but we know just at that moment in time it wasn't a right fit. So it's about marketing to those candidates again and hoping that they reapply. We also take this principle into every project that we do. So we listen, we measure, and we act. Looking more broadly at the candidate journey, this is how I see it. So the candidate experience and the employee experience should feel like one thing. I was joking the other day, actually, trying to use a fashion analogy with the candidate experience. And the way I see it is if employer branding is seeing the clothes on someone else, and employee experience is actually wearing the clothes. Candidate experience is probably going into the shop, talking with the shop attendant, finding the right size, trying it on, and then seeing whether it's a good fit for you. And this is, for me, quite important to understand. If you use that analogy against your own recruitment process, it really helps you guide you to be more customer-centric. So the first bit of advice is listen to your customer. There's many ways you can do this, and it's quite simple advice, but actually not just measuring through surveys, but actually going out and meeting candidates to find out more about their individual experiences. So one of the projects that we did was a candidate journey redesign. So it was part of a work stream we called customer centricity. And we partnered with our business, so we actually enlisted the help of one of our senior producers at Zalando, who runs agile workshops and design thinking workshops. And we wanted to sort of reimagine the candidate journey. So we came up with a simple workshop where we assessed each stage of the candidate journey. So this is job search, apply process, waiting, because candidates wait a lot of the time when they apply for jobs. The interview process, the offer, and onboarding. And what we did is we looked at how we got the candidates to say what they liked about the process, what they disliked about the process, but also attach an emotion to that part of the process as well. And the emotion was quite funny because obviously, you know, you can get a full range of different types of emotions. And I'll show you I'll show you at the end a little bit about some of those raw artifacts that produce these emotions relating to the candidate experience. You get some emotions like anger sometimes, you get some emotions like happy. You know, it's definitely a good exercise to carry out because it really puts you in touch with how the candidate's feeling. The other interesting note that came out was that the hiring manager view of the process and the candidate view of the process are very different. Even though they're following roughly the same timeline. So obviously the hiring manager has a briefing stage, but usually the candidate's doing their job search at the same time. And we've added waiting in there because you can see a lot of the time when decision making is happening on the hiring manager side, the candidate is often waiting. So how do we re-engage with that candidate and activate the employer brand a little bit more to make their experience better? During the workshop, we also asked them to look at the moments that matter and look at what they would like to improve the most. And actually, the moment that matters most to hiring managers is the on-site interview. They want to be fully prepared for the interview, know everything about the candidate, and also know exactly what they're assessing. So the interview process at on-site experience at Zalando is usually about 4 interviews, which look at a specific competency, like analytical thinking, for instance, and then another interview might be like commercial impact, for example. So they want to be prepared for that. It's the same with the interviews as well. And it's exactly the same for the candidate. The candidate wants to be prepared for the interview as well. So that coaching elements that the recruiters need to do to make sure that that candidate is going into the interview at their full potential so they can nail the interview on the day. Also, some of the points to take out was the offer and onboarding process were also seen as key for the candidate. And with the offer process, it's really about that speed of process, so being able to get the contract quite quickly, generally speaking. And then onboarding was having good consistency, so having a buddy system and also making sure that they can learn before they start, so that pre-boarding experience. The second part I wanted to give you advice on is about measuring the experience. So you can't change effectively what you can't measure. And this is also what we found out in the past year. So how we do this is through a candidate survey. So this helps us reach candidates that have entered our recruitment process at scale to find out about their experience. And this is what we ask. We look at the 11 questions across 4 core values, which I'll show you, I'll give you a sneak peek of in a moment. But mainly they fit along those buckets that you saw at the start: seamlessness, interaction, clarity, and assessment. We also measure NPS and satisfaction scores. NPS is quite an interesting thing because it's the tool that's used for marketing to see whether someone would recommend your service. And this is something that speaks to our business. It's actually one of the main KPIs that Zalando use on the commercial side. So it makes it natural for us to use that and tell a story to our business. But interestingly, what I geek out about is the satisfaction score, because the question is more related to the recruitment process and what you then think of Zalando after going through that. So it really tells a story to the recruiters, if it's good or bad. So if it's good, you can celebrate what they've done. If it's bad, you can coach them and look at different things of doing things. And these are the questions that we have. So I got a good overview of the job opportunity. The recruitment process was clear to me at all times. The job descriptions were clear and informative. Then you go into seamlessness. My application status was clear. I'm happy with the speed. The scheduling was seamless. Interaction quality, I got treated with courtesy and respect. Number 2, I got actionable feedback about the decision during the process. I'll talk a little bit about this particular question because it's one that drives candidates insane in most recruitment processes. And assessment quality. So looking at the recruitment process, I was given the possibility to present my personality, skills, and express myself. And also my interviews were well prepared. So again, going back to that journey I saw where interviews want to be prepared, hiring managers want to be prepared. This is really important because it's a question that we measure. And the top 3 painbacks for candidates are feedback, transparency, and speed. This is what I've learned over the last year. So again, looking at this in its bare essentials, candidates want a quick and timely process. They've got perhaps other job opportunities they're looking at. I'll come back to speed in a moment. Transparency, I want to know what the process looks like so I can prepare myself, and I want to have timely status updates about that process when I move to the next stage. And feedback, I've invested time in your process. Now, I know some candidates might scattergun approach applications sometimes, but they've still invested some time, so we need to get back to them. But also the time invested in things like making time for interviews and being able to give not just feedback, but actionable feedback that helps the candidate, almost like a gift. Then you need to act on your data. So taking the data, telling stories with hiring managers, telling stories with candidates, so that you can get better insights from them, and also putting the change into the recruitment process that makes a difference. So I'm going to showcase 3 pain points over the last year. We've had many pain points in our process, which we're looking to fix. But also I just want to showcase some of the 3 solutions that helped fix some of these issues. So feedback is definitely something that all candidates want. I think it's a basic need, and as a feedback-giving company, it's something that we pride ourselves on. We have to make sure that that is like a strong part of our recruitment process. And there's no fancy technical solution to feedback. You just got to do it. So actually what we did is create a program of workshops, training events, a roundtable, which I'll talk about in a moment, and SLAs. So we give out feedback to every candidate that reaches an on-site interview, and it's quite detailed feedback, and we spend usually about 20 minutes to half an hour taking them through a call to make them understand a little bit about our point of view, but also offering that fairness opportunity, so the chance for them to feedback to us. It's got to be a two-way street for it to work. The roundtable is really interesting because we have a roundtable usually without the senior management of HR and recruitment. And actually, if you throw a few beers in there as well, this is where you get some of the real insights. And I think what you actually tackle is some of the I guess some of the problems that the recruiters have with stuff like making time for feedback. They're hiring at high velocity all the time, so making the time in their diaries to do that properly. But also, roundtables give us more insights to be able to make better solutions. So it's definitely a tip that I've learned over my career, especially from events like True, where the unconference event where we look at bringing a subject into a roundtable discussion. There's also transparency. So to give, the product that we created was the Zalando Candidate app. So this is an app that you can download on your App Store or Google Store. It's self-developed in-house because we had the capability to do that at the time. So actually, in a big reshuffle, what had happened at Zalando, we'd reorganized the teams, and then our people team then had a people tech team. So we didn't just have a tech department for a company, we had a tech company within our people team. So they were able to build us an app. So myself and Zuran Vinter, the head of recruitment, helped steer this project. And what we did was we built on top of the API for our ATS solution, which is Greenhouse. And we were able to, once you downloaded the app, for any role that you'd applied for, you could see a breadcrumb trail of how, where you are in the process. You get push notifications to tell you where you are in the process as well, when that happened. And this is how it looks on the iPhone screen, obviously. And then this is a screenshot of what we did as our second update, which is where we added Uber-style feedback. Because one of the things that happens when you do a candidate survey is that you're always measuring the candidate experience after it's happened. And the problem with this is that it's great. And the analogy that I use is that if there's a real problem for the candidate in the middle of the process somewhere, like they're waiting to be reviewed by a hiring manager and they've been left in that stage for a long time, let's just say, it could be that they're getting agitated by that. And generally, we don't find out about that until right at the end of the process when they've been rejected, after the role's been closed and the surveys have been sent out. So actually, having in-the-moment feedback helps us to put the fire out when it happens rather than let the house burn down. And this is something that we wanted to do with the app. So like I said, it gives transparency on the process, status updates on progress, and in-the-moment touchpoint feedback. We also introduced a program called the Candidate Experience Guild. And this is our sort of internal recruiter program that we put them on, where we generate insights for them. So we actually get our recruiters to sign up for our CRM solution, which is Beamery. And we use actually Beamery to help power our automated updates to recruiters. So for example, I'm a tech recruiter looking after software engineering. I type that into the portal form. What we'll do once a month is automate their NPS results direct to their desk. So it means that they've got actionable insights to take to their next meeting with hiring managers. We also do quarterly reviews and weekly tips updates as well. We also do coaching sessions, so we have lots and lots of different tools to use at Zalando. So for instance, we have Qualtrics, which is our candidate survey tool where you can dip in and out of to get candidate comments, the latest NPS scores, CSAT scores, etc. But also we use business intelligence tools now on top of Greenhouse to make us visualize our data a little bit better. So we use MicroStrategy to help do that. And MicroStrategy is a business intelligence tool, so you need to know your way around it, but it's a really powerful tool to take to hiring manager meetings. Let's say when you're kicking off a new vacancy round, you can show them what the last sources of hire were, you can show them what their average time per stage was. So again, you influence the hiring manager with data so that you can really have an impact on recruitment. And these are coaching sessions that we offer to recruiters as and when they need them. And then there's the Red Dot Roundtables. So I talked about it a little bit before. We've had 4 Red Dot Roundtables so far, and these are mainly around the values. So whether it's been feedback, I think was the first one. We've also done stuff on clarity and transparency. We recently did a one on internal NPS to look at how we inject more thought into how we deal with internal candidates, because sometimes the process is very different to external candidates. So there's a great roundtable about that with some solutions of how we can help our internal audience. So it's a really good, I guess, tool to use just to create more awareness about candidate experience and really inject it as a mindset. This is an example of one of the emails. I'm sorry, it's a little bit blurry on the big screen. But you can see some of the results from the bar at the top. So we sent it out to like 50 recruiters nearly, 85% opened, and 25% engaged nearly. So actually what we got was, we usually ask a question at the bottom where we ask them to share their top tip, and then we collate all those top tips and then share them around to the team so everyone can learn. And this is also a tool that we use. So it's a scorecard where we try to track progress against how we can move NPS in the right direction. So you can see there we've got all of our different values, and we can make actions to commit to, and then hopefully that increases output on the NPS. So we tool all of our clusters and job families up with this, and they report on this once a month. So now that I've taken you through some of the solutions, I wanted to look a little bit into the future as well. So one of the problems that we see is that, especially when you go to conferences like Unleash, where there's lots and lots of different vendors there, as HR buyers, you go into there usually looking at the cool tools before you actually define what your problem is. So we've now actually come up with a way of how we buy tech to enhance the experience. So educating stakeholders on how we buy tech to humanize the experience. So we created a talent tech radar. So this is a radar that our business uses to advise on what kind of technologies it's using on future projects. But we've stolen that idea and then looked at all of the tooling that we use for sourcing and attraction, employer branding, candidate experience, recruitment, and assessment. And we have a strategy of how we assess, we trial, we hold, and adopt. And this is what it looks like, but it's something that we publish to all of our teams so that we ensure that we are only talking to the right vendors about what our problems are and how we solve those. And it helps also guide our business on what we're doing as well. We're also running a pilot for a chatbot. We've called it For Fact's Sake because it's about FAQs. And usually when you go to FAQs, that's exactly what you're thinking at that point. So essentially, this is just a little screenshot about how many interviews are there. Like you can expect at least 3 interviews, who you might meet, and also a little note to say that we offer feedback to all on-site candidates. We also see chatbots as a key part of our strategy going forward, because chat will become, I believe, the interface for the candidate in the future. I recently wrote a paper, actually, about how chatbots should look in 2021. And actually, my vision is that everyone has a chatbot. So the hiring manager has a chatbot, the candidate has a chatbot, the scheduler has a chatbot, and they all interact with each other and sort everything out. Whether that's achievable in the next 3 years is another matter. But this is where I see in the funnel where chatbots can help out. So screening, scheduling, assessment, contract, and onboarding. So lots and lots of different opportunities there. And we started off with FAQs, but we will progress into those areas eventually. So 5 lessons just to wrap up from the past year. So listen to your customer. I think that's really important. You have to put them at the heart of the process, otherwise either they don't adopt the process or they just don't like it. So you've really got to listen to your customer. And it's not just the candidate, it's also listening to the hiring manager, listening to the interviewer, taking care of the recruiter experience and making sure that they have a great experience, because if you take care of all of those, the candidate experience should look after itself. Feedback is a gift. We ask candidates for feedback on our process, but we need to make sure that we give that in the appropriate amount, but also that it's actionable and you can take that away and use it. You can't change what you can't measure. I think I would change that to you can't change effectively what you can't measure. So rather than stabbing in the dark a little bit with what your gut is telling you, use data to try and help you bridge that. Focus and obsess on the things that matter. Candidate experience, in my experience over the last year, it can turn into a game of whack-a-mole, because as soon as you sorted something out, something else has cropped up. So you really need to figure out what is affecting your NPS the most, your experience the most, what's getting the most comments and negativity, and looking at how you put an action into focusing and fixing that. And also make change happen. Like, from my point of view, I don't have a team. I literally have the recruitment team as a sort of matrix team to pull support from. So you really need to sell what it is that you're trying to do into them to make change happen. So you can't do it alone. You've got to enlist support. So make this a top table issue. Like I said, NPS is like a key metric for Zalando, so it's easy for us, but you've got to figure out what metric is it that talks to your business if you want to have an impact. And at the end of the day, we just have to love candidates a little bit more, make things more customer-centric, and yeah, I think that says it all, really. Thank you.
Yes, thanks a lot, Chris. I think it was a nice wrap-up at the end, and also a nice slogan to end. Yeah, we love candidates. Maybe if we time for one question. Someone in the audience who want to ask something to Chris about his clear presentation?
Question.
Oh, yes.
I saw something about.
Yes.
I saw something about a Hangout interview. Well,
Yeah.
what's that about?
So Hangout Interview, because we use Google products, it was called Google Hangouts. So
Google Hangouts,
it
okay.
Hasn't changed.
Okay, thanks.
I think it's Google Meet now that we use.
Yeah.
So it's just the name of the interview. Essentially what we mean by that is a virtual interview.
Yeah.
So we'll screen candidates, then we'll invite them to a virtual interview with the recruiter and then the hiring manager, and then after that we'll invite them on site where they meet more of the team, the interview team.
Yeah, thanks.